What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with the Faceoff Sports Network. I am back today with my partner, Anthony Servino. And today we're going to do something a little bit different, right? We are pretty early in the offseason. If you are watching this video, it is March 20th. And some people are currently drafting best ball lineups, still getting ready for next season, while dynasty guys are making trades, grinding tape, looking at, rookie mock drafts and all that. And then you have redraft guys who are kind of sitting around with their thumbs up their butts, probably not paying too much attention. So we kind of fall in all of those categories. And today we're going to take a look at ADP right now, where it stands for best ball drafts, and take a guess as to where we think they will finish and settle at the end of the offseason. So last week in August or first week in September. We encourage you guys, if you are watching, feel free to throw in your guesses as well with us and play along as we're going to pick about 8 to 10 names and give you where they currently reside on the board and, where we think they will end up, and give some of our takes as to how we think they'll perform this season. Anthony, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So my man, Jamie, is here in the house. I'm sure more people will trickle in. But the first player we are going to talk about is going to be Justin Fields, new addition, new quarterback of the New York Jets. And, right now, Justin Fields is going pretty far. Right now he's being drafted at the 12-1. And currently he is quarterback 20 off the board, and he's pick 133. Anthony, tell me a little bit about what you think of Justin Fields so far this early in the offseason, and where you think he might kind of settle.
Yeah, and I've never been the biggest Justin Fields guy. I certainly don't think he's the type of quarterback that's going to go in and take the Jets to a Super Bowl. But, you have to be real here. When Justin Fields, in fantasy football-wise, he's been absolutely electric. QB5 in fantasy points per game in 2022, QB9 in 2023. He played 15 and 13 games. And then even in a small sample size last year, and I'm pulling up last year's numbers, he had a few games with Pittsburgh where QB12, QB1, QB7 on the week before they pulled the plug and went to Russell Wilson. So we know Justin Fields, from a fantasy football perspective, he is one of the best fantasy football quarterbacks. Right now he's being drafted right around the QB 20 off the board. Justin Fields, to me, is a top 12 quarterback. And we're, Pete and I are currently in a dynasty superflex draft. I've done a few drafters drafts, and I'm thinking, all right, where, we see the ADP. There's no way he's falling to his current ADP. This thing's going to climb. And I can see Justin Fields being drafted as a top 10 quarterback, possibly as the QB, anywhere between the QB 10 and 12 off the board. What he does on the ground, I think when he gets going on with his legs, I don't know if many quarterbacks can bring that to the table, because we know he's not the greatest passer. He really does rely on his legs to move the football and make plays, more so than maybe anybody in the NFL. Because even as good as we see Jaden Daniels is, he's a really good quarterback. That's not really Justin Fields. He makes those electric plays with his legs, and that accumulates fantasy points. He uses his legs to score the football. So I think Justin Fields on the Jets is absolutely perfect for fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Justin Fields, the fantasy asset, Justin Fields, a good fantasy football quarterback. When you look at his average points per game, prior to last season, it was 9 and 5th in fantasy points per game. That's 18.4 and 20.5 in 2023 and 2022. Now, as a rookie with the Bears in 2021, 11.4 points per game, quarterback 31. And then last year with the Steelers, right? Quarterback 29 and 12 points per game. But I think the Steelers, not that they ran a more conservative offense, but I feel like they had the training wheels on for him, because they were kind of just bracing themselves and trying to just tread water, because ultimately we saw what happened, in season. This team won a bunch of games, and then they went to Russell Wilson as soon as he was healthy, even though the team was winning football games. So I don't think his 29 and 12 points per game is indicative of who he is as a fantasy quarterback. I don't love him, the NFL quarterback, but this is a guy that, he gets into the end zone on the ground. He runs for a lot of yards, right? He had 8 rushing touchdowns in his sophomore season, 4 rushing touchdowns, in his third season, and then 5 last year. And that was a really small sample size last year. To have 5, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could totally see it. I think if I was going to be guessing at the moment, he's quarterback 20 off the board. I think he's going to settle somewhere in that QB 13, QB 15 range. If I had to take a guess, to Anthony's point, I think a lot of people will probably have him ranked at like that QB 10 to 12. But as right now, he's sitting at the, let's see. He's sitting at the 12th round, the 12-1. If I had to guess, I think he cracks into the top 100. And I think he's probably likely going to be a 9th round pick, maybe 8th round at the highest. But if I had to call my shot, I think he's going to go mid 9th round. And that's where I could see him settling. I think for some of the other players that are higher up on the board, we'll give an exact pick. Like if they're being drafted at pick 40, we'll say pick 25. But for guys super far out, maybe we'll just go mid round, late round, early round, and pick the round. So for me, Fields, I'll say mid 9th. Anthony, what about yourself?
I would say I'll go in the 9th round as well. I don't know where in the 9th. I do think you're going to have to take him in 9th round. I certainly am willing to take him there because of how great he's been in fantasy. The new OC with the Jets, Tanner Eggstrand, he was with Ben Johnson in Detroit, and we saw what the Lions did. They get the ball into their playmakers' hands, and there's no bigger playmaker. I mean, you can make the case for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall on the field than Justin Fields. So there should be a lot of designed runs for Justin Fields under Tanner Eggstrand.
Yeah, I think so as well. But Anthony, give me mid, early, late 9th round, since this is the experiment. I know. Just give me your guess. Where do you see him?
I'm going to go early 9th.
All right. So you'll say early 9th. I will say mid 9th. Your guess is the 10 to 12 range. My guess 13 to 15. If we're talking 9th round right now, Brock Purdy and Jared Goff are going in the 9th round. And as it stands today, they are 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12th and 11th. So QB 11, QB 12. So if they do land in that 9th round, likely going to be a hit for you in terms of which quarterback off the board, because you're picking 10 to 12, and I'll say 13 to 15. So I think maybe what I'll do is I will adjust and go early 10th round is where I will settle. If you guys do want, like I said, comment in the chat your predictions, and we'll kind of go from there. Mr. Grapefruit said, do you guys think Brock Bowers has a case to be drafted over Chase, Barkley, Gibbs, and Bijan? It seems like the days where Kelsey was a first rounder are over, and then Fields after Caleb and Kyler is his guess. Yeah, I think I could be swayed on I mean, the way it stands, if Fields starts the whole year, I could be swayed. I'd rather probably take a chance on Fields over Kyler based on Kyler probably being drafted a few rounds ahead of him. So that would be my early thing here. But as for the question here, Anthony, what do you think? I mean, Brock Bowers, Chase, Barkley, Gibbs, Bijan. If we're talking a dynasty startup, maybe you could make the case over the running backs. But in a redraft, I still think for me, I probably have all 4 of those guys ahead of them.
Yeah. And I'm going to obviously buy into Bowers this year, especially with Geno Smith and what Bowers did last year. In the FFPC, which is a standard tight end premium, we're going to see people in these high stakes leagues take Bowers number 1 overall. We saw that with Kelsey year in and year out because of his tight end premium. But in these underdog leagues, in these your standard PPR redraft leagues, no. I mean, Jamar Chase, Barkley, Gibbs, and Bijan, I would take them all over Brock Bowers, unless you're trying to go with the unique roster build and you're somebody throwing in 50 lineups into an underdog contest, and maybe you take a shot because you're going to have 50 builds. Otherwise, if you're just playing in a few leagues, no, you're taking Brock Bowers behind those four players.
Okay. And then we'll answer this one quickly for Jamie. He said, would you guys trade away Fields for the 108? I think it really depends on roster construction, Jamie. To give you an idea, I like to use Dynasty Lab just to get an idea of where he's going in startups right now. And let me pull it up really quick. But if I had to guess, I would say probably, yeah. I mean, Fields right now is being drafted between the 111 and the 112 for 2025 rookie picks. So getting him for the 108, if you're getting him and you have a surplus at quarterback, I'm fine. If he's your quarterback 3 and you have 2 strong guys in front of him, I think it's fine. I think you're getting good value. I'd be fine to take the 108. That'd be my opinion. I don't know if Anthony feels any different.
I want to throw this out there with Fields and the contract, 2-year, $40 million with an average of $20 million a year.
Yeah.
This isn't like, we're locked into this guy forever. This is a 2-year deal. If the Jets fall on their face with Justin Fields this year, like I said, he'll be great this year in fantasy. But if they're picking at the top of the draft next year because Justin Fields wins 5 games, they're going to take one of these top quarterbacks coming out, and that could be a wrap for Justin Fields. If Justin Fields doesn't make it work with the Jets, and I'm not saying like put up big numbers, I'm saying win some games, then this might be the last year he is as a starter, which means I'm probably not willing to give up the 8th overall pick in a dynasty league for him.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And honestly, when you say 2-year, $40 million a year, that's
$20 million a year.
I mean, that's what I meant to say. 2 years, $20 million a year. That's bridge quarterback money. Like slightly better than bridge quarterback money. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, $20 million a year for a starting quarterback is not a lot when you think about the going rate and what the starting quarterbacks in the NFL are getting right now. Like Baker Mayfield, like after a big year got like 35 I think per year. This is really a 1-year deal when you look at the guaranteed money, and it's a great move by the Jets. It's low risk, high reward. If it doesn't work out, they can hit the draft next year and reset a quarterback. It doesn't tie the new coaching staff and GM to a quarterback long term. And if it hits and he does play well, this is a first round pick, right? Like a couple years ago. I'm not a Justin Fields truther. I'm not in love with his game. I don't believe in him in terms of long term. But yeah.
What's that?
Sorry, did you hear that?
Yeah.
There was an ad that popped up on one of the websites I had in the background. But anyway, Jamie said giving him up, Herbert, Nix, May. Yeah, I would trade him if those 3 are your quarterbacks. I think that's a fine return. So yeah. Now, in terms of our next player, we are going to talk about CJ Stroud. Now, again, as we said with Fields, with Stroud, feel free to let us know your comments and where you think he will settle in ADP wise. But currently, CJ Stroud is sitting at quarterback 17, so 3 spots ahead of Justin Fields, and he's going at pick 125 in the 11th round, middle 11th round. I mean, when you take a look, Anthony, this is a quarterback who just lost his left tackle in Laramie Tunsil to a trade. They did bring in Cam Robinson, who had kind of a shaky year, with the Vikings. I think if the Jaguars were willing to, depart with him and trade one of their better offensive linemen to the Vikings mid-season, they didn't really think much about him. And the fact that the Vikings didn't bring him back, I'm not surprised about that. They get a comp pick, and they also have their returning starter who was injured coming back. But they get Cam Robinson. It's a bad offensive line to begin with. I have concerns about that. Now they bring in Christian Kirk, but this is a low floor quarterback, in my opinion. He doesn't have rushing upside. When you look at CJ Stroud, right? Last year, he rushed for 233 yards, right? So we're talking under 20 yards a game, like if that, we're talking about more closer to 12 yards rushing a game. The year before that, as a rookie, 167 yards. That's 10 yards a game, 11 rushing yards a game. So low floor there, right? They lose Stephon Diggs. They lose Tank Dell. Nico Collins is back for another year. Maybe they add in the draft. Maybe they bring in a running back to spell Mixon. But to me, I'm okay with his ADP where it is currently. I know it sounds crazy, but like I'm fine taking chances on guys like Drake May who can get around ahead of him, especially in this offense right now where he doesn't provide much with his legs. And I worried until I can see them making improvements on the offensive line. Like I can't buy into him from an asset. I can buy into the weapons. I like Stroud. I actually happen to like the Christian Kirk addition, but for me, I'm not in love with it. And so when you take a look at Stroud last year, 13.7 points per game, this was a guy being drafted as a top 12 quarterback in fantasy last year, completely fell on his face because of a lot of pressure, because of just the way that offensive line protected him and just a lot of mistakes. And so to me, I think if I had to call my shot right now, I think he's probably going to be drafted. I'll give him the 10th round as quarterback 15, 16. I don't think he rises that much higher in the process from where he is now. I think quarterback 17 is pretty fair at this point in time.
Yeah, I was out on CJ Stroud last year. I thought he was being overdrafted, and that was one of the things I got right last year. He regressed. And of course, yeah, his wide receivers were all banged up. All three of them missed time. You bring up Christian Kirk, right? This is a banged up wide receiver, and Christian Kirk gets banged up too. So you know, where is the healthy, or at least a wide? I get you can't predict injury, but maybe bring in another wide receiver of note with a healthier track record than Christian Kirk. You know, you move your best offensive lineman, as you said. This wasn't a great offensive line last year, and Stroud's efficiency last year was not great. 26th with a clean pocket, 14th in the red zone. 27th under pressure, 31st at the deep ball. I mean, the efficiency, everything regressed from the rookie year. I just don't know what to think of CJ Stroud right now. There was a time last year when you watch CJ Stroud play, and I was watching Bryce Young ascend. Maybe we got it wrong. What if Bryce Young ends up being the better quarterback, despite Stroud making the playoffs 2 years in a row and a really rough start from Bryce Young? I don't think this conversation's over yet. I don't think that it's a lock that CJ Stroud's going to go on to have the better career right now. So when it comes to where I'm drafting CJ Stroud, I can see him, right? Because you said he's going, here's 125 off the board. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over CJ Stroud. I'm taking Justin Fields over CJ Stroud. That's at least two right there. So I think he goes backwards a little bit.
Yeah, so you think that so right now he's QB 17. You think he settles in at like QB 20 area?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that crazy. Look, when you think about like Justin Herbert last year, Herbert was being drafted like that QB 20 range, like QB 18. Like that's kind of where we see him right now. The difference is, Stroud has more established weapons than Herbert did last year. It was still a bunch of question marks. We didn't know Lad McConkey was going to be that good last year, right? To start. We liked him, but I don't think we thought he would. We didn't predict him to have that kind of year, right? So it sounds like to you, and I'll make a note of it. So
I'll take Tua over CJ Stroud, who was QB 13 in points per game last year. I was actually, again, 11 games, but it was actually better than his 2023 season where he was the QB 16. It was averaging almost a full point better in the 11 games played. I'll take Tua over CJ Stroud.
Okay. So right now, Tua is quarterback 21 off the board. Fields is quarterback 20. Trevor Lawrence is quarterback 18. The only quarterback in between all those guys is Michael Penix. Would you be taking him over Penix or Penix?
I'd probably take Stroud.
Okay. So based on all of this, you have Stroud then at the quarterback 20. Is that about fair?
Yep.
Okay. And quarterback 20 as of now is about right around the 12th round. Do you think that's about fair as well?
Yeah. Or I would say, I'm going to sound like maybe round 13. Maybe that's where he goes. The only thing that's going to save him in fantasy is Nico Collins, because people like Nico Collins, like he could still be a top 5 receiver, and CJ Stroud still finish outside the top 20.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I happen to like Christian Kirk. I think if Christian Kirk is healthy, he could be really good in this offense. I did a film breakdown a little bit, and Christian Kirk, their play styles are him and Stephon Diggs very similar. Just Stephon Diggs has been healthier most of his career and been in better offenses. But Christian Kirk, if he could stay healthy, like he slots into that role
Yeah.
really, really nicely. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I don't blame you for that at all. Moving on to our next player, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, right? This is going to be a fun one to talk about. We got the quarterbacks out of the way. Let's talk a little bit skill players. And Christian McCaffrey right now, he is going off the board at the 2-3. So high second rounder for CMC and RB6, and he is the 15th pick off the board right now. Now, when we think about Christian McCaffrey, look, tendonitis in both calves, right? There is concern there. This team extended him, right? Do they grind him into the ground, or are they going to take a more conservative approach this year? It's tough to say right now. It feels like they're going to probably bring in another back. Jordan Mason just got traded. I don't think that they felt like we're trading Jordan Mason because we feel so confident in CMC, like we don't need him and it's a surplus. I mean,
I think it was the money.
Yeah, I think it was the money. They recouped a pick, and they're probably going to use that same draft pick to take a guy in the 6th round, which is what they got for Jordan Mason. So, but Anthony, CMC right now, pick 15. He is a high second rounder right now at the turn, RB6. You're on the board. What would need to happen in the 1st round for you to take CMC that high? And would you consider it? You might tell me I wouldn't take him that high no matter who I took in the 1st round. But where are you at with CMC right now?
You're obviously getting a massive discount for CMC because he is still entering his age 29 season. And he's missed a lot of time. So it's not like he's 29 getting 300 touches a year. He only played in 10 total games between 2020 and 2021, and then 4 games last year. That's almost like 2 full seasons in his career where he did not play. That's what all that wear and tear is gone. But again, what was it? It wasn't a tear. It was the recurring Achilles.
Yeah, it was the Achilles tendon.
Right.
He didn't tear it. He just aggravated it, and then he had to get like injections. It was a whole thing.
And then the sprained PCL in week 12.
Yep.
And then the calf strain in week 17 of 2023. So these little lower body injuries are creeping up, and that's huge for a running back. We saw that it cost him almost his full season. And then in the 4 games that he did play, he didn't look very good. I don't think he looked good because he was never really healthy. I think the 49ers were desperate and rushed him back. So I'll buy the discount on Christian McCaffrey, but like, what kind of player do I need to draft in round 1? I would say, and I think it would be impossible to get somebody like Jamar Chase. He's usually going to go pick 1 or pick 2, which means you're not picking again until the end of the 2nd round, and CMC would have to fall. I would need that type of a player. Or I would say even maybe, I made this mistake last year on Justin Jefferson. Like, well, I don't know what the quarterback's going to be like, and Justin Jefferson killed it. But like, at least Jefferson, it seems like he's a little bit quarterback proof, and he's going to bring a high floor. Like, I need like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. I need a player where they're not going to bust every week, right? Like, because you have some of these players where they'll get you 30 points and you'll get them in the 1st round, and then the next week they'll give you 10 points. Like, I need a player who's going to get me a consistent 18 points a game, because if Christian McCaffrey doesn't work out, you need that 1st round pick to carry your team even more.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to take Christian McCaffrey, he would have to be my RB2, I think. Unless I am in a situation where I get Jamar Chase or Jefferson in the 1st round and CMC falls on the way back to me, because then I can double up and take CMC and then take another good running back right behind him, right? Where it's kind of like, for example, you might be able to get Bucky if if CMC in this theory falls right, and you have Jamar Chase, you're likely taking Chase at like the 102, the 101, maybe the 103. So you have a good chance of right now getting Bucky Irving, Breece Hall on the way back. Now, if you had
But
Bucky Irving and Breece Hall as your RB2, some people might argue that they would be your RB1 and CMC's your RB2. So, like, I would be okay with that combination. But I think outside of that, I'm not taking CMC that high in the second round unless I have a stud running back ahead of him. He'd
like
have to be my RB2.
like Bijan, 58% of his games were over 20 points last year.
Right.
Like somebody like him in round one and come back and get CMC, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Right.
Jamar Chase, 52% of his games were over 20 points. I think that's the highest rated wide receiver, and Bijan's the highest rated running back with percentage of games over 20. You need a player like that if you're going to take that risk on CMC.
Yeah, I just think that's what like you would need a stud, or to me, it would have to be, like my roster build would need to be elite running back and then take CMC. So like Devon A-Chain, right? If you can get Devon A-Chain at say the the 110, the 109, the 111, right? And then get CMC right behind him, I'd be okay with that. Because I could look, because if Devon Achane has an amazing year like we expect, and he hits on his ADP, CMC is just gravy at that point, because the running back position is so valuable now, again, in fantasy football, that if CMC busts, he's not going to kill your team. Like you could get like a decent third back behind him a couple rounds later, but you're either way still building wide receivers likely in rounds 3 and 4. So like that's not going to affect it too much if you hit on that running back and it's an elite player. So I think if we're talking right now, I would say I don't think CMC drops too far from here. I think if I had to guess, I think CMC is going to probably be a background too. So I would say a late second. And if I had to guess, he's probably going to go at that 210 would be my guess. I think he's a 210. I think that's where he settles. I think 210 is where he settles. What about you?
I think he's going to creep up to the early second round.
Well, he's already early though. He's at the 2-3.
Oh, he's at the 2-3.
Like I think Bucky Irving, to me, I think Bucky Irving has a good chance to get ahead of him by the time drafts start.
See, I could see CMC going at the 1-2 turn, and it doesn't mean I would take him there, but we know how reactive the fantasy community is. We know that CMC, he could be the number one player off the board, and we're going to get closer to training camp and preseason, and we know we're going to hear CMC looks great. There's going to be the YouTube videos where he's cutting and he looks great, and everybody's like, we're getting that CMC back, and they got rid of Debo too. And all of a sudden, we're going to see I feel like we're going to see CMC climb up draft boards, and people are going to forget about the Achilles tendonitis.
That's fair. That is certainly a good point.
Think about all the every year the Zeke workout videos. His ADP would jump up 2 rounds because he was juking trash cans.
All right, so I'll put you down as early second, and I'll put you down at the 201.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Now this is where you think he'll settle. This is not where you think he should go.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, guys. This is where we think they will settle, right? And maybe a little bit of spice there, like Anthony saying Stroud finishes QB 20 by the time drafts start. That might be a little bit, overreactionary, but that's also part of where Anthony thinks he should be as well. So we'll obviously differentiate that as we go through these next couple of players. But yeah, I think that's a good exercise. I think CMC is going to be a really interesting guy. But let's move on to our next player here, and it's going to be Breece Hall. We talked about him a little bit, right? Because we talked about Justin Fields, him getting a new quarterback in Justin Fields. And, I know people are concerned. I'm concerned about Garrett Wilson with Justin Fields. We're not going to talk Garrett Wilson today, but I think it's stock up for Breece Hall and it's stock down for Garrett Wilson. Reason being for me, and currently Breece Hall is the RB10 off the board. He's going at pick 29, and that would be the 3-5. So he's going as a mid third round pick, and he's going off the board as RB10. I think he creeps up to like the 3-2. I think that's where I would guess that he settles. I don't think he gets much higher than this, but I love the value for Breece Hall at that discount. As of where it stands today, I think Breece Hall is going to benefit from Justin Fields. Look at Lamar Jackson and look at Derrick Henry, right? I think the Jets are going to run a lot of read option. I think it's going to put a lot of stress on the defense, and defenses are going to have to prepare for Justin Fields' legs, and that's going to help Breece Hall. Now, is Breece Hall going to score maybe as many rushing touchdowns? Maybe not. But I also know that Justin Fields has a tendency to check the ball down. And if that's the case, I think Breece Hall is going to be a guy that gets a lot of dump offs. When Justin Fields is sitting, scrambling in the backfield, trying to find, make extra time, and Breece Hall is sitting there as a safety valve, I think he's going to catch a lot of checkdowns. So I think his receiving work is going to go back to that 2023 where we saw he caught 76 passes in 2023, right? Last year, we saw him catch 19 less passes, and that's a big difference. I mean, we're talking about an extra catch a game. That's a whole extra point a game. And I know that might not feel like a lot, but when you look at his points per game last year, 15.1 points had him at 17th in the NFL at running back for 15.1 points per game. He scored exactly two more points the year before at 17.1. And that was good for RB6. Reason being, he caught an extra pass a game and he was averaging around 10 more receiving yards per game. That's like the exact math right there, how you make that up. And that moved him from RB17 in points per game to RB6 in points per game. I think this is going to help him. I think we're going to see his receptions go up again. And I think this is going to be a nice upgrade for Breece Hall, where if people are worried about it because it's a rushing quarterback and it's going to take, some of those touchdowns away, I'm buying in. I'm really excited for Breece Hall. I think this is going to be a good opportunity for him, and I'll take him at that 3-2, and I think that's where he's going to settle.
Yeah, I'm buying in Breece Hall. I'm in on Garrett Wilson. Again, this is a conversation we'll have in another show. We'll probably debate Garrett Wilson a little bit, but I also think Breece Hall can bounce back. Remember, 2 years removed from the RB6 in points per game, and I think he was somewhere around the RB2 overall in 2023 with Zach Wilson and the mess of that quarterback room. Aaron Rodgers, right? He wanted to push the ball down the field. He wanted to make the play. He wanted to hyper-target Davante Adams when he got Davante Adams. He didn't check the ball down a lot. And as Pete said, it affected Breece Hall's receptions and his targets. We already know he has 76 catches on his resume from 2023. Well, Justin Fields isn't that quarterback. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He will check the ball down. And again, I brought up the Tanner Ekstrom, the offensive coordinator, getting the ball in his playmaker's hands. We're not going to find a better playmaker at a skill position than Breece Hall in this offense. And Breece Hall, I would say, very similar to Jahmyr Gibbs, where I'm not going to say he's going to have a Jahmyr Gibbs type season, but I can see him having that workload. And there's really not a quote unquote David Montgomery type on this roster. I know people like the other backs on the Jets. I think Braylon Allen, but is there a world where Breece Hall goes back to the type of touches, that workload, that opportunity share he had in 2023, and the offense runs through Breece? Yeah, I absolutely see that. And if that happens, then I think Breece is going to well outperform his ADP. But because there are so many good players, right? Like if you look at the first 2.5 rounds of players, like it's hard to say, well, who's going to fall back where I can say Breece Hall is going to creep up. But I do think he ends up in the back of the second round. Maybe a guy like Drake London, maybe we see him fall, who's in the mid-second round. I think, what are we going to get out of A.J. Brown? I think A.J. Brown's one of the toughest players to gauge right now because with Breece Hall on the Eagles, that offense, with Saquon Barkley on the Eagles, the offense runs through Saquon, and really A.J. Brown is almost a supporting weapon. Maybe he falls back a little bit.
Mm.
Maybe we see Ladd fall back, especially if the Chargers go and draft a receiver. They brought in Mike Williams, but he's not going to cause Ladd's ADP to fall. But if they go and get a marquee wide receiver, then maybe Ladd McConkey's the guy who falls. So I would say Breece Hall goes into the back of the second round, like maybe in that 2.10 range. So I like him a little bit more than you do.
I could see JSN falling a little bit if they draft a receiver. He's going at the 3-1, a couple picks ahead of him. I could see Breece going ahead of Garrett Wilson. I could see him going ahead of T. Higgins too. I think T. Higgins, is a guy who's going to be one of those where is he going to settle kind of people. And I think you're right. I think AJ Brown could definitely slide a little bit. I don't think AJ Brown comes out of the second round. I think he stays second round. I think Tyreek Hill at the 2-9 could very well find himself in that third round. So we'll see. But I did want to mention one thing, and then we'll get to the next one. I know Zach, and appreciate everything, and then we're going to get to you, Sauce. Zach said DJ Moore did fine with Fields. So I do want to mention this. Garrett Wilson ran the second most go routes in the NFL last season. Justin Fields was one of the worst quarterbacks on go balls, right? I don't think Garrett Wilson's Garrett Wilson's a very talented player. He doesn't have to run go balls. He can do a lot besides just run straight down the field. But I do have concern there. And when we talk about DJ Moore, it gets brought up a lot, right? DJ Moore had a good, played well, but guys got to keep in mind, DJ Moore had a 49-point game where he scored 3 touchdowns in that one game in 2023 that made him, 9th in points per game. Like, he was 9th in points per game with a 49-point outing. A lot of that, when you think about DJ Moore that season, DJ Moore he only had over 100 yards outside of that 4 times. He had 4 times where he had over 100 yards. That game he had 230, 8 catches, and 3 touchdowns. So, like, he didn't support DJ Moore getting 100 yards more than 5 times. Like, so there was some inflation there, and a lot of it was, a lot of receptions that bubbled him up. Garrett Wilson is a better receiver, I think, than DJ Moore, but I am also a big DJ Moore fan. I could go either way on that, to be honest with you. But so that's part of my reasoning, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole because we'll talk Garrett Wilson probably on another show. But I just wanted to get that out there. But I don't blame people for buying into Garrett Wilson. There's other guys around him that I'm probably going to be taking. But let's move on to our next player here. And the next player is going to be one of Anthony's guys. So I'm going to let Anthony talk about him first. It's going to be Najee Harris. Najee Harris finds a new landing spot, goes to the Chargers. And this is a guy that's hit 1,000 yards in every single season in the NFL. And hasn't missed a single game of his entire career. Chargers get a workhorse running back. And, Najee Harris right now, pick 81. RB21, and he's going in the late 7th round. Anthony, is that too rich? Is that just right? Or do you think he's going to get up a little bit higher?
I think he's going to go a lot higher. Najee, obviously, everybody in Pittsburgh, or at least the fantasy football community, get Jalen Warren the ball more. Najee Harris is the better pure running back. And if you look, and one of the stats that jump out to me, he was 5th when it comes to average defenders in the box, 6.7 defenders. So anytime he's on the field, especially in the Arthur Smith offense, the ball's going to Najee Harris one way or another. Stack front carry rate, he was 9th, 4th in stuff runs. A very predictable offense. But if you look at some of the metrics, right, outside of yards per carry and yards per touch, he was 9th in evaded tackles. So he can break tackles, pretty good in space, 11th in breakaway runs, 12th in yards created. He's a very good running back. And now you're going to go to an offense in the Chargers. Clearly, Justin Herbert's an upgrade over any quarterback Najee's ever played with. So, and then you got Ladd McConkey there. So you have to respect the pass when you're playing against the Chargers. The Chargers also invested first-round picks and I believe 3 offensive linemen. This is clearly going to be the best offensive line that Najee Harris has ever run behind. There's no other running backs there. I don't think they're bringing Dobbins back. Their running back room right now, I can't even name. They cut Gus Edwards. I can't even name another running back. Come on. Oh, great.
Come on,
Look how
Iguodala.
great he did last year for J.K. Dobbins. So,
That's
like,
true.
this is his backfield. Pete brought up never missed a game, can obviously handle well over 300 touches a year. And I think that's what he's locked in for. And I think he's also a superior pass catcher over J.K. Dobbins. And Dobbins caught a decent amount of balls for a guy with not the greatest pass catching skill set. And you put a guy like Najee Harris out there who in his rookie year caught 74 passes. I think Najee, I don't know if he gets there, but I would take Najee as early as the 5th round.
Okay. Wow. That's
I'm all in. I think Najee's gonna have his best season since his rookie year. I know, I don't know if it's a bold prediction, top 15 running back in fantasy.
yeah. So I guess before I give my take, do you see them adding a running back in this draft class?
No. I think they need help at wide receiver. I think they could potentially be in the tight end market in the draft, but I don't see, like, they could bring in another running back, but I don't think it's going to be a significant one.
Yeah, because I think
too much.
I think that could be what's reflecting Harris's value right now at RB21. I think people that are drafting are assuming and have been drafting, assuming that they were going to draft a running back, which was being mocked a lot to them until Najee Harris signed. So I'm in agreement with you. I'm going to go ahead and say that he probably settles as the RB15. He's RB21 right now. I'll say he probably settles as RB15. And I think RB15 probably gets him, if I'm taking a look at the board really quick, I think that he probably goes somewhere right now. What do we say? He's going currently. Go ahead.
Oh, no, never mind. 1, 2. I mean, RB15, is that right? No, I'm sorry. I'm not looking at running backs. I'm looking at overall. I would say CMC is the 15th player off the board, not a running back.
Yeah, I mean, RB15 is about 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. The 5-4. That's where Chuba Hubbard's going right now.
Okay.
I'd say I think Najee's probably early 6th round is where I'm going to project that he's going to go. If I had to guess right now, I'll say early 6th. And what is your final prediction for
I'll
him?
go early 5th. I will take Najee right behind Joe Mixon. In fact, I'm telling you, I might take Najee before Joe Mixon if it's me.
I mean, yeah, I think it would depend on if they bring anybody in or not, too. And same for Mixon. They might bring in somebody else. He's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
just looking at the Chargers O-line, they also brought in Mekhi Becton. I get he was a bust at tackle, but at guard in Philly, he was outstanding. This is one of the biggest offensive line in terms of stature.
Yeah,
in the NFL.
So you're gonna have him as an RB14 then, and then I'm gonna I'm looking back. I'm gonna have him at RB16. I'll say early 6th. You'll say early 5th, and we'll call it a day there. I do want to answer Alfredo.
Go ahead. Like, I get people are mocking running back there. They moved off of Joey Bosa. Like, they need a pass rusher. They need to kind of revamp this defense a little bit. So I certainly don't see them going running back early.
No, and they were being mocked early because they didn't have a running back there. Like, I don't think people expect Najee to sign there. So I definitely agree with you. I don't think they take running back first 2 rounds. I think they'll probably take one early day 3, maybe 4th or 5th round is what I would guess. But I do want to answer Alfredo because he's been waiting, or Sauce Alfredo. Alfredo said, what are your thoughts on taking Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors over Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka, and Bowers in a dynasty startup? We actually saw this happen. Now, ours is a tight end premium, so Bowers went ahead of all of these guys. But Brian Thomas Jr. went ahead of Malik Neighbors, who Anthony actually took 2 picks after. And Anthony took Malik Neighbors over Puka, Gibbs, and Bowers wasn't available. So I guess, Anthony, the question would be for you, if Brian Thomas Jr. or Bowers was available and it wasn't, let's say no tight end premium, because that's partially why Bowers went that high, would you have taken BTJ or Bowers over Malik Neighbors at that spot in the dynasty startup?
It was tight end premium. Our league's tight end premium, right?
Yes.
So maybe.
But I'm saying, if it wasn't a tight end premium, would you have taken BTJ if he was available, or Bowers if he was available, over Malik Neighbors, where you took him, which was
I'm
at the
probably
110.
still going Neighbors over
Okay.
both if both were available. I just think like that LSU receiver product right now is just off the charts when we see guys like OBJ come out and Jamar Chase. I think that the pedigree of receiver coming out of there is outstanding, and I get Brian Thomas Jr. didn't have the best quarterback play. Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones were still both first-round picks. Malik Neighbors made it happen no matter who was back there. He was hyper-targeted. And Brian Dable, he's another one. He's going to put the ball into his playmakers' hands. And right now in New York, it's still just Malik Neighbors. Like, I like Tracy a lot. They brought back Slayton, but this is Malik Neighbors' offense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and that's totally fair. I thought BTJ did go a little bit high. I love BTJ, but he went ahead of CeeDee Lamb. Depending on what I could see the argument for him over CeeDee Lamb right now, especially in Dynasty. But yeah, I think that kind of answers the question, Fredo. As always, hit us up if you have any other questions. Let's move on. I mean, we have 3 more players. We're at the 45-minute mark. 3 more players to go through. And the next guy is going to be Davante Adams. Davante Adams, another guy just like Najee Harris, who makes his way to a new team. Davante Adams right now is going off the board at pick 40 at the 4-4, and he's wide receiver 21. I think with Davante Adams, it's going to be team build dependent for if I'm drafting him at that cost. When we think about Davante Adams, I mean, he was 9th in points per game last year, and watching some of his film, like, he didn't really miss a beat. This is a guy who, since 2018, has had under 141 targets one time, and it was in 2019 when he played just 12 games. Outside of that, he has had 141 targets every single season since 2017. So he looks good. He still looks healthy, in my opinion. I'm comfortable drafting Davante Adams. It's just going to matter, who am I taking him over? Where is my team built? Give you an example. Jaden Daniels right now is the pick ahead of Davante Adams. Do you want an elite, weekly winning quarterback on your team like Jaden Daniels, who is going to be possibly a game changer for you? Or do you want a wide receiver like Davante Adams, when you can get players, and take swings on other receivers behind him if you're willing to take the chance, like a Chris Godwin, who's going almost 2 rounds behind him? So for me, it's going to be team build dependent. I think this year I'm focusing on taking those elite quarterbacks, like that we know have rushing upside, over these wide receiver 2s or, running back 2s. Like, I think I'd rather just take the known commodity that's going to win me weeks. But with Davante Adams right now, like I said, wide receiver 21 off the board. Xavier Worthy's going 2 spots ahead of him. Other wide receivers, Mike Evans is going at the 310. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going ahead of him. And then right behind Davante Adams at wide receiver, you have Devonta Smith, Jameson Williams, Zay Flowers. Honestly, I'd be more comfortable taking Jameson Williams. I think maybe Zay Flowers. It's going to, the Jameson Williams thing, I'm buying into him, but you got to keep in mind, Davante Adams is going to be the wide receiver 2 on this team, but I think he's still going to get his. So curious to know your thoughts, Anthony, here, and then I'll give my pick. But again, going at the 4-4, wide receiver 21. What are your thoughts?
I do have a little bit of a concern about Davante Adams. I think he's going a little too high for my blood right now. Adams, 4th pick in the 4th round. I would not take him until at least the 5th round. And to be fair, it's not like I like guys behind him. Jameson, I think it's too early for him. Zay Flowers. If Rice wasn't facing a suspension, I think Rice goes higher. I would take Rice. But again, the suspension worries me. Maybe I take a shot at Odunze in the Ben Johnson offense. And you got DK. We don't know who the quarterback is. To me, this is the wide receiver dead zone where I would probably look towards another position instead of taking a wide receiver in the 4th round whatsoever. it might be a little bit early, but like guys like I talked about, I think Najee Harris goes, Chuba Hubbard. Like I'd rather have some of these guys. Jaden Daniels brought up. I think I would pull the trigger on Jaden Daniels or Lamar if he happened to fall. I doubt it, but like I just don't. This is like a dead zone of wide receiver to me, where I'm looking somewhere else instead of drafting a wide receiver. Like I would rather take 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds than go anywhere here. Like, and my biggest concern with Adams, he is 32 years old. Eventually, he's going to break down. And who knows, like what Davante Adams are we going to get if he is not? Remember, Aaron Rodgers was hyper targeting his guy last year. What if Davante doesn't get that type of target share? And I don't know if he does with Puka Nacua healthy. And because like the way Aaron hyper targeted Davante is the way Stafford hyper targeted Kupp. And then when Puka got there is the way he hyper targeted Puka Nacua. So yeah, I unless he's getting north of 10 targets a game, which is what Davante had last year, pretty much for the duration of his career, I don't know what we're going to see out of him. And this is still a Rams offense. The Sean McVay offense, they want to run the football, and Kyron's going to get his touches. So I would probably need Davante to fall around before I consider drafting him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I don't think I'd be taking him. Now, we talked about this the other day, and I'll mention it one more time here. When looking at the Rams last year, Matthew Stafford threw the ball 517 times. He completed 340 passes. Puka Nacua in 11 games had 106 targets. Cooper Kupp had 100 targets in 12 games played. Tutu Atwell had 62. He's coming back. Demarcus Robinson had 64. Jordan Whittington had 28. Tyler Johnson had 41, who's now with the Jets. And Kyron Williams had 40. Davis Allen had 13. My point is, there are vacated targets here where I think we likely see Puka get up to that 140 to 150 targets for the season. And I think Davante Adams probably somewhere, if I had to guess, around the 110 to 120 is where I see it. Reason being, you have 62 vacated targets between Demarcus Robinson and actually 100 between Robinson and Tyler Johnson, give you 100 right there. If you give Puka 60 of those, there's still 40 left to go around, so
got to factor in Higbee's now going to be back for a full season.
I agree. No, I know Higbee had 12 last year. Colby Parkinson had 49. So if Higbee gets his 12 plus Parkinson's 49, that gives him 60. I think 60 is probably pretty fair for Higbee. So my point is, I'm not worried I'm not worried per se. But it's too rich for my blood is the main thing. I think Davante Adams is going to have a good year, but to your point, I think it's like a wide receiver dead zone. And I think I'd be comfortable taking shots on guys a round or two behind him.
Do we see you? And again, and this is like earlier, I forgot the player we're talking about where like CMC, where I said people are going to remember the good old days and we're going to see a spike. Well, last year, remember, Puka Nacua was going to the back of the first round and Cooper Kupp was going like the 4th round. And all of a sudden in August, Cooper Kupp was going in the 2nd round.
Yep. And
I can see a world where that happens. I don't know about the 2nd. But I kind of see like a 3rd round, and there's no way I'm going that high.
No, I don't think so either. But yeah, I mean, so if you had to guess right now, he's at the 4-4. I think I would take that bet with you. I think mid to late 3rd rounder is where I expect him to settle.
Yeah, I'll go back in the 3rd just to be different. But
okay, so I'll say mid 3rd.
I do see his people. If they were willing to go that with Kupp, I could see them buying into Davante Adams as we get closer to August.
Oh yeah. No, I mean that's totally fair. Now we're gonna shift gears to our last tight end. Well, we're gonna shift gears to our last position at the tight end spot. Before we do that, Jamie, one comment said Adams and Puka should get 25 to 30% of targets. I think that's pretty fair. I think Puka could certainly see 35%. It really wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to shift to Anthony's favorite position, tight end. Anthony fell in love with tight ends last year, and I think Anthony is now going the complete opposite way this year. And so the first tight end we're going to talk about is Sam LaPorta, who was a redraft darling last year. This is a guy that was going off the board as the tight end 2. A lot of people had him ranked pretty high. I think Anthony and me probably. I think Anthony, I had him outside of my top 3. I had Andrews at 3. I had McBride at 1. I had Kelsey at 2. And then I think I had LaPorta at like the 4 spot. I think you may have had LaPorta at 3 or 4, or were you not that high on him? I don't remember.
I was probably right where you were. Yeah. I know I was not taking him in the top 2.
Yes, I do recall that. I do recall that. I think you may have had Andrews as your tight end 2 last year.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, maybe that was what it was. But okay, so we have LaPorta, who a shift in what the community thinks of him. LaPorta was going as a 3rd round pick. Now he's going double, 6.5 round. So middle of the 6th, tight end 4 at the 65th pick. Quite a change for Sam LaPorta. I mean, this is a guy who last year, Sam LaPorta really didn't have the best season. You're also talking about a team that's lost a lot of coaches. They lost, their darling and Ben Johnson. They lost their DC. Can Dan Campbell step up to the task and promote from within? And did he promote the right guys? That is something to be seen. So far as of late, we've seen teams promote from within, and it's worked. I mean, we saw it with the Bucks last year, right? That was successful. We've seen a couple other teams do it recently, and it's been successful. But I'm not gonna lie, I have concerns. A lot of coaches left. Sam LaPorta was 8th in points per game, giving you 10.9. Just not going to cut it. 7 touchdowns, 726 yards, actually more yards than I had expected. 60 receptions on 83 targets. Actually, his numbers looked a lot better, but he had 40 less targets than the year before, 26 receptions less than the year before. He had 160 receiving yards less, and he also had 3 less touchdowns. So regressed everywhere. I think this is probably where he's going to settle. I think this is fair. 7 touchdowns, 60 catches, 700 yards. I think that's the kind of player he is. He's not a yak monster. He's more of in my opinion, he's more Jason Witten-esque, right? Like a guy that's not going to get a lot of yards after catch, but finds soft zones and knows where to find spots on the defense. He's more Kelsey-esque, right? Not a big yak guy, but finds ways to get open in zones on defenses. So, Anthony, Sam LaPorta here, tight end 4. You're a guy who doesn't look like he wants to draft tight ends. I think I'm following that suit as well. I'm sure you're going to tell me no at the 6.5, but is that where he settles?
Knowing, probably. Honestly, I don't see him going any higher or lower. I think 6th round, mid-6 is probably just right for Sam LaPorta. I don't think I'm taking him there whatsoever. Like last year, tight end 8 points per game, tight end 8 overall, 26 fewer targets. 26 fewer receptions, just under 100 fewer yards. Now, his yards per reception did go up about a yard and a half from his rookie year to last season. Touchdowns, he lost 3. What hurt Sam LaPorta last year was probably the emergence of Jameson Williams, and Jameson Williams isn't going anywhere.
Yep.
I also don't know what LaPorta's role in the offense. You brought up the assistants lost. They actually lost 8 total assistants. It wasn't just Ben Johnson going to the Bears and taking his guys. Aaron Glenn, the DC, went to the Jets and he took guys with him. So 8 total assistants gone. We don't know what this offense is going to look like, and it does scare me a little bit. Yes, they have guys. They have studs all over the place. But what is somebody like Sam LaPorta? Where does his role settle?
Yeah, I think he settles as a 3rd, maybe even 4th option in the offense. It's just what we saw consistently. Jameer Gibbs takes another step forward.
Jameson and Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, crazy enough.
David Montgomery. We forget about David Montgomery.
Oh, trust me, I am not the guy that forgets about him. He is one of my favorites. Remember last year, I said that I thought that he was a chance. I thought he was like my RB12. I don't remember
Yeah.
where he ended up finishing, but I was that high on him. I just love his game. But
I don't think he
um,
was that far off until the injury.
no, I don't think so either. Points per game, he's probably
He
about
was 16th in points per game and 18th overall, and that was, who knows if he doesn't get hurt, he's probably a couple of spots higher.
yeah. No, I agree. And he came back. Well, I don't think he didn't come back for the regular season. Yeah, I mean, he was Mr. Consistent, but yeah, I mean, 20% target share actually not terrible for Sam LaPorta with all the weapons around him, but we don't know. I mean, there's a chance that the new offensive coordinator wants to feature him more. Who knows? Does Jared Goff regress? Getting older, lost his coordinator. I don't know if the QB coach is still there. I'd have to take a look, but maybe the QB coach is the OC now. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I think this is pretty fair for LaPorta. I don't think a lot of people are going. It's amazing what a year will do. Looking at these tight ends, it is gross, man. It feels really, really gross right now. Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, I see regression for Kittle, who's tight end 3. I see, Sam LaPorta here at tight end 4. TJ Hawkinson at tight end 5 might be the best value out of those 3 guys. If you add Mark Andrews as the tight end 6, I mean, Hawkinson probably has the best chance to exceed where he's being drafted at the 7-10, but you have Jonnu Smith behind him. You have Travis Kelce, Njoku. Like, Dalton Kincaid has fallen on his face. I just feel like if I'm drafting tight end, I'd rather take swings on David Njoku, Tucker Kraft, Evan Ingram, right? Like, even Dalton Kincaid, like, those guys are being drafted as like the tight end 10, 11, 12. Like, I'd rather take chances on those guys than Sam LaPorta, and TJ Hawkinson at the price that it's going to cost you.
Yeah. And again, the knock on Hawkinson, like I am a little bit worried about JJ McCarthy. I can't.
Yeah, I get that.
I get they thrive with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was also a former first round pick. I get JJ was first round pick, but JJ McCarthy really didn't have to do a lot with Michigan, and then he missed all of last season, and now he's just going to be thrown into the trenches. And this is a team that won 14 games last year. There's a lot of pressure under him. I don't know. Mark Andrews, I'm probably going to dive back into Mark Andrews wherever his cost falls. If I don't go Andrews, I'm probably not touching tight end until later. Like, I love the landing spot for Evan Ingram in Denver. Kincaid is pretty good value now. Entering year 3 with the Bills. Like, we were paying, people were paying the top 5 tight end ADP for him. Jake Ferguson's going to be healthy. We know what a healthy Dak, he loves his tight ends. There's just, Hunter Henry. He was a top 10 tight end last year. Brenton Strange with Evan Ingram out of Jacksonville. He goes in that starting role with Liam Cohen. Like, I'm going to be loving that Jacksonville passing attack. Mike Gesicki, Jatavian Sanders, before he got hurt, looked pretty good. Theo Johnson, like, there's a lot of, I'm going to be taking my swings on late tight ends. Plus, who's going to be the tight end with the Chargers? Like, is it going to be Will Dissly, or do they go draft somebody?
Well, we're also, keep in mind, this is also not taking in effect Tyler Warren and any of these rookie tight ends. I mean, Loveland, I would say Tyler Warren is probably going to go where Jonnu's going right now, right behind Mark Andrews. No matter where it is, I think he goes as the tight end 7, 8, right ahead of Kelce. Is probably where he'll go. He might go ahead of Mark Andrews. And I think Loveland probably goes around the 11, 12, 13 spot is what I would guess. And then there's a couple other tight ends behind him. Arroyo, Mason Taylor, Ferguson from Oregon. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And honestly, let's just call it where we are right now. So Sam LaPorta, 7.5. You say
I think he's going to be. It's right where he is now.
Okay. So I'll write down that you're the same. And then
before last year, I always waited on tight ends because there's always late tight ends. You got to guess right? You probably got to take a couple of them. But look at Zach Ertz. People last year, outside of me and you, Pete, people left Zach Ertz for dead.
Yep, I
And he was
remember.
a tight end 7 last year.
I remember people made fun of me for saying that he was a good value in best ball, and I was told that he won't even be on the team halfway through the season, which I thought was ridiculous when you think of his relationship with Cliff Kingsbury. And
And
tight
they
end
brought
is
it
one of
back.
the best. Tight end is one of the best aging positions in the NFL. Like these
Mhm.
guys don't have to be fast. Like if they are smart and they look at Jason Witten. The dude had like no legs for like the last 4 years of his career, but continued to play
Yeah.
because he would just catch spots in the soft zones and just get first downs for them, right? Like so but all right, so I'm going to say late 6th. I think he slides back just a little bit because of the rookies. I don't think the rookies will jump him, but I think the rookies might have people possibly waiting a little bit longer on tight end, which might push Sam LaPorta back just a tad.
And the new
Last
OC in Detroit is your old passing game coordinator.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yep. I remember.
Because, Campbell has the Sean Payton connection. So it doesn't make sense he brings somebody from that tree in.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos are the first team I've ever seen to make the playoffs for the first time in like 8 years and lose like 7 assistant coaches when they didn't even go anywhere. I don't even fucking like, and it's not like it's not like one of our coaches got a head coaching job
Yeah.
and so they took everybody. Like they lost a playoff game and that was the first one they've been for like 8 years and then we lose like 7 assistants, which is just insane. But Mark Andrews here as the last player, and then we'll wrap up the show here. Mark Andrews going off the board as a tight end 6th. He's going in the off at the 8, so 8th round in the 8th spot. So we're talking mid-late 8th round, pick 92. I think this is kind of fair. I think Andrews falls to like the 9th. I think he ticks back just a little bit because I'm banking on rookies, coming in and maybe people taking a shot on rookies. I think there's a good chance Warren, like I said, settles in right behind Andrews and in between him and Jonnu and possibly ahead of Andrews as like as the tight end 6. So I would say that would be my guess. We looked at what happened to Mark Andrews. There's talks that they were going to move on from Andrews. Same with Goddard. So we'll see if those offseason moves happen. But Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Listen, I'm going to buy back into Mark Andrews, and really his ADP is just about right what I would pay for him. Despite a really slow start, like Mark Andrews looked like a big time bust last year until he started getting going. Finished tight end 7 points per game, tight end 6 overall. Once he started getting going, finishes with 11 receiving touchdowns, his most since 2019. So, 69 targets, didn't get a lot of opportunity, but made the most of his opportunity. 12.2 yards per catch, which is his most since 2021. So he had a fairly efficient season. Am I worried about a touchdown regression? Absolutely, because if there's a touchdown regression and there's no positive regression in targets, then yeah, okay, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble here. But I'm willing to roll the dice on something like Mark Andrews because, again, years past in Baltimore, Mark Andrews really was the guy. It was Lamar and it was Mark Andrews. Now you got to worry about Lamar, Derrick Henry, who the offense is going to run through. And all of a sudden, you got Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews just kind of settles in. So I'm fine with going back into Mark Andrews because there's just so many other guys on this offense where you can't cover everybody.
Yeah, they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. Another possible weapon. I mean, depending on how much juice he really has left at this point in his career. I think Andrews is fairly valued. I think Isaiah Likely is going to be what Isaiah Likely is. Going to have some pop games, but he's an inline tight end. He's not on the field. He's not going to be on the field all the time. And he's in an offense that requires a lot of heavy sets because of the types of offense they run. They run a power zone scheme, because of Lamar's legs and because of Derrick Henry. So I think that bodes well for Andrews. I'm not worried about Isaiah Likely. I know there are people that we're going to hear it. It's going to be we're going to hear all offseason. There's going to be an Isaiah Likely hype train. If I know we're early, and if you're listening,
Steve usually leads that hype train.
And
he loves Isaiah Likely.
I'm going to be there to shoot it down, and I'm sure you will too, because it's going to happen. You're going to see people are going to be talking about how he's going to take Andrews' job and this and that. And Mark Andrews is going to do what Mark Andrews does. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to be a staple in the offense. I know he got off to a slow start, but keep in mind, this is a guy that had that. Didn't Andrews have that tightrope injury with the ankle?
I believe so.
So, like, we've seen a lot of guys, it takes them a year to come back and be their selves after that.
I mean, and I think last year we saw a different like they use him differently, right? I mean, you go back to like 2022, he was 5th in deep targets, 4th in red zone targets. Last year, he was 3rd in deep targets, 8th in red zone targets. He was a number 1 tight end. And I'm looking back if he's ever anywhere close to this. And I do think it has to do with, Derrick Henry being there. He was a number 1 tight end in ADOT.
Really?
You go back to 2021 was another efficient year, 1 in deep targets, 1 in red zone targets, 5th in ADOT. So it's almost like he's having a little bit of a resurgence now. Again, it's just you have Derrick Henry there now, and you got to kind of play this offense differently. Because if you pay too much attention on Mark Andrews, then you're taking a guy out of the box and let Derrick Henry run down your throat, or Lamar.
I mean, I think that's an interesting perspective, especially looking at the ADOT. I think that's interesting. That's not something that I had noticed or saw. But yeah, I mean, Andrews started to come on late last year. I mean, this is a guy that people were dropping.
Yep.
Like, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I could see it. I'm fine taking a chance on Andrews. I do think, again, LaPorta, like those guys, like I think there's a regression likely for Kittle, but you can also make the argument if you're not if you don't believe in CMC and you think Kittle can stay healthy, they just lost Deebo Samuel. Does Kittle start getting a new role where he's becoming more of a featured player every single game rather than a guy that they can pick spots on when they want to use him, right? So that'll be interesting, but this was a lot of fun. Tomorrow we're going to start doing our stock up, stock down, but it's going to be for Dynasty. So if you guys are here now, keep that in mind. Me and Anthony will be here likely tomorrow at 6:30. And we're going to do stock up, stock down for startup ADPs for Dynasty players. We're going to talk about the biggest risers, the biggest fallers, and we're excited for that. And we're going to start making that a weekly staple. And then obviously, we're going to bring back the risers and fallers for best ball ADP in a couple of months. That'll be something that we do. That was a staple of our show last year, but excited for that. Excited to have you guys join us back tomorrow, and we'll see you guys then.